so we should sit here, right? And the talk will be in English? Okay. I'm just like, want to be sure that if it's in English, then most probably we don't have any government members here in the audience, like so. But yeah, thanks for having us. I think one of the most important things was not introduced about you. Allan is also the, I'll say, grand old man of Estonian startup community. So you still remember those times where all those great startups were born. Like, so we should start from somewhere. Like, I don't know. First question for you. Like, as we do it in a fire chat mode, like, why do you think that we have this digital society in Estonia? What is the reason?
First of all, good morning, and thanks, Taavi, calling me grand old man. I'm trying to escape that epithet, but like not escaping anymore. So, welcome to Estonia, and Estonia is of course has so many different faces and so many different names, but one of them, without any doubt, is that it's a startup country. And it's one of the most successful startup countries, not only in Europe, but nowadays also all over the world. So giving you a few numbers, and we last year had like a record year of venture capital coming into Estonian companies, and it was more than 350 million euros. And that's in a country of 1.3 million people. So now if you do the math and divide it on to a per capita basis, so we are pretty much on the level of United States and Israel, which are considered to be the leaders of startup and world and technology industries. And we have literally hundreds of different startups, and they are popping up each year, but there are also superstars. This country has given birth for 4 what is called unicorns, or tech companies having more than $1 billion, euros, whatever, valuation. And Skype, obviously, from old days was maybe the most known, but we also have TransferWise, which is a leader in money transfers. So now we have Taxify, or now it is called Bolt, which is like an alternative to Uber. Also have a company called Playtech, which is like partly Estonian, partly Israeli, but has development here, listed in London, doing online gambling software. So like all flavors, but in general, this country has thousands, and at this point probably close to 10,000 people involved in startup industries. And it is growing very fast. I would say about like the headcount in our startup industry is growing about 25% per year. Most of those people are nowadays coming from outside of Estonia, like or many of them at least. It's about like 1/4 of people in Estonian startup industry, they are expats already. So, and it's quite different. Like if you take like UK, if you take Silicon Valley, if you take Germany, so and look on the startups, and the percentage of non-local people is considerably lower. And it's a really interesting phenomenon, and let's maybe discuss why Estonia has reached this situation. So, Taavi, you have been seeing it yourself as well. So what are the roots of Estonia being successful in tech?
I mean, it's very important to mention that when we talk about digital society, we should point out it's not digital government. The digital society is actually government sector working together with the private sector. And the innovations that happens in the private sector should be accepted by the government and vice versa. Only then you can build a proper like digital society. I think that's the biggest problem what you have like in Western European or like Western countries, that you see private sector developing super rapidly, but you don't see government accepting the same changes. So, for example, data exchange happening between companies, it's quite normal in private sectors, but not in too many countries. But we were lucky to have the same problem what Sweden and Finland and the other Nordic countries have, which is that we have a huge amount of land, but not too many people. So outside of the capital, if you want to be efficient, you cannot afford a bank office in every small town. If you have like 4 or 5 transactions per day, there is no point to keep a clerk like behind the desk. So it was clear already 20 years ago that if you want to be efficient in this country, you need to push people to use technology. And to build that, Estonia didn't have like money, meaning like we couldn't afford McKinsey or Accenture or like other big players. So we had to rely significantly on our local resources, which means that those people got skills. And like building something, let's say our ID card initiative, our digital identity initiative, it came from the private sector. Let's basically solve the question who is behind the device. And let's solve it together, like private sector together with government. Or vice versa, like the government introduced like new initiatives like e-residency, the private sector like takes it and tries to build business out of that. So it has always been together. So it's not like e-government. I mean, there's no such thing like e-government. There's digital society or nothing. So, and I think that's like core thing why we have been successful, similarly to other Nordic countries.
Maybe one observation from my end is that Estonia always, because of the small size, always has had some sort of like hacker mentality when it comes to also doing e-government affairs. And to bring you an example, you made Taavi remember, I think it was year like mid-2000 or early 2000s when the Estonian cabinet minister, prime minister office was moving to a new building, now called Stenbock building. And I got the call, I was the CEO of the largest IT services company in the country at that time. I got the call from the advisor to the prime minister saying, hey, we are moving in 1 month, and the prime minister wants to make the cabinet meetings paperless. And we have 1 month, so actually it was 3 weeks, and we have 20,000 euros because otherwise we need to declare a government tender. So can you do it? And yes, we did. Like in 3 weeks' time, the cabinet meetings were equipped with a like document management system, and every cabinet minister was able to participate online, worldwide. So we did it for 20,000 euros. So and like this cabinet meeting room was actually showed to every visiting head of state, and it became a kind of trademark of the country. So next door in Latvia, so they basically had the same project, and like Latvia is also looking at Estonia and saying, hey, we need the same. So and because our company was also represented in Latvia, so it was a multi-million-dollar project, and it took significantly more time. So almost everything in Estonia here, like if you take e-tax, like everybody declares taxes here online, it takes about 2 minutes to do your national income declaration. So e-residency and so on. So they are kind of hacked quickly together. So they are usually made into small projects, which can be like done in months or maybe like a maximum a year. So they are usually low in budget, and they just happen. And usually the initiative comes from bottom up, not top down.
That's actually interesting observation. The point is that after 3 successful reforms, people start to demand more. And they don't care what it is, but you have to deliver. And if you don't deliver, they start to say that the tiger is sleeping and there is no innovation in our country anymore. And you look around, like, what do you say? I mean, like, there's no innovation. Like, it's like all kind of innovation there. But I have to salute to our politicians because through the history, they have trusted engineers. So if engineers say that, okay, this will be a radical reform and it takes more time, it takes like a couple of, voting cycles or like governing cycles, just wait. I mean, the pieces will come together. They have listened. I mean, our data exchange platform started to work basically 7 years after the first implementation. ID card, the same thing. I mean, if you want to change society, the change takes like 6 up to 9 years. And like our government has like had this trust or belief that there's no point to cancel project. Let's give time to mature, and this is a huge thing. I mean, Australia has tried to do the digital identity twice. Both times they have rolled it back because it takes more than 1 voting cycle.
Taavi, let's talk about e-residency. So you are usually called the father of e-residency. So you're father of many children, but like e-residency seems to be most famous of them. So how many in this audience actually knows what e-residency means? Okay,
5, 6, 7.
Not too many. So Taavi, what is it?
And one thing why I actually wanted to become, I didn't want to become CIO, but why I accepted the CIO position was that the government promised that it doesn't matter how crazy ideas you have, like we at least consider them, and if they make sense, we will do it. And it's an interesting that when the country becomes digital, like the whole country, the private sector together with government, you will start seeing like new trends happening in society. So, for example, if everything is digital, if everything is paperless, like the meaning of location, the physical presence is not so important anymore. So I now mostly work in India, doing Digital India, And still on the same time, I have business in Estonia. And I'm fully in charge of those businesses, even though I'm actually working more than 6,000 kilometers away. So, and when the whole society, for example, accepts digital signature, and like 95% of the contracts and everything is signed digitally, you start to understand that you actually can connect like not only Estonians with this kind of society, but you can basically offer the same service to anybody. So actually that's an interesting trend. If you have noticed, you can get an MIT degree nowadays without visiting US. I mean, you participate in internet courses, you do the exams, and like you don't have to physically be there. It's possible. You see the same kind of trend in healthcare. I mean, like if there is a better doctor in Switzerland in that particular illness you have, like you go there. So like certain areas that has been monopoly of the countries, like education, business ecosystem, taxes, healthcare, etc. I mean, it won't be monopoly anymore in future. And what we noticed is that there is a new trend in the world called digital nomads, or people who travel a lot, who spend like 3 months in Bali, 4 months in UK, another 4 months in US, then Canada, then back to Bali. So who serves those kind of people? And like that was one of the motivations. Like how can we connect more people with the Estonian economy in a way that the taxes are still paid in a country where they're located? And even more interesting, if you are in a different countries, can we actually solve the tax question in a way that all those countries get something? So that math is not there yet, but that was the ideology behind it. But now you serve them, so you can tell like what kind of people are using Estonian digital citizenship.
Yeah, so first of all, it's not a citizenship, as you know, it's a residency,
Sure,
but
yeah.
there are about maybe 60,000 people who have got e-residency, close to 60,000 if I remember correctly. And they have set about 6,000 plus companies, and they have set up 6,000 plus companies in Estonia. And Leapin, my company, serves about maybe 40% of them. So basically, they're running on our platform when it comes to accounting. So we help them to incorporate. They can actually incorporate the company on our platform. So and like do everything what they need without leaving our environment. And that's a beauty because like Estonian government has actually built APIs, and we have built the government interface. And that's actually, I believe, how it should be in the government. So it's not the government's task to build user interfaces for interaction with like customers or citizens or companies. So the government must build processes and regulations and APIs. And as a private company, it will be significantly better in putting together interfaces. So for like different types of companies, different people, they will look better, they will work better, and so forth. So without losing functionality and still being safe. And that's pretty much what Leapin is doing. So we are the government interface for e-residents if they want to operate for Estonian companies. And our long-term vision is actually to be the interface not between only Estonian country as a platform and the customers, but also pretty much any other country that is ready for that task. So we see the world like the governments are like, if you remember, like years ago, everybody had a server in a corner. So today we're running everything on Amazon Web Services, and we don't know and care where the server is actually in Ireland or in the United States. So same way we see the world going forward. So that we are the Amazon Web Services, and the countries are the physical servers somewhere. So the businesses and interaction with the platform will be detached from physical countries.
So it's extra interesting fact that when we developed the residency, we saw mostly people outside of European Union doing business with Europe. So it makes sense. I mean, like you outside, let's say you're Indian, in India, you want to sell your services in Europe, you want European presence, like here is your access point, basically. And then suddenly, like a huge part of Germans start to come and apply for e-residency. And we are like, now what happened? I mean, Germany, like you are inside of European Union, right? Actually, you are the European Union because without you, nothing happens. So you are inside of Eurozone. So why the hell you need Estonian e-residency? What's the benefit? And then their answer was very simple. Like running a one-man company in Germany is extremely bureaucratic and expensive. in Estonia, like let's say with Leap-in, you pay 75 euros per month and you don't need to do any reporting and like nothing. Everything runs smoothly, and that's the service you want to buy. And that's what we see. I mean, like, you don't buy CDs anymore. You use Spotify or SoundCloud. You pay $6.99 and you have the whole music in the world. So everything becomes like, if it's like efficient, it's cost effective, it's easy to use, people will go for it. And they don't care. I mean, you don't think that like if I use Spotify, oh, it's Sweden. Like, or like if I drive Uber, the money transfer platform comes from Netherlands. Like, you don't think this way. So, and that's what will happen. And what Estonia has proved with e-residence, I think, like most of the countries, you don't have to be worried about Estonian providing this service. But today's observing different countries all over the world, basically China is able to do the same kind of thing. If they would like to do the same thing, they could do it tomorrow. Like no other country is near to that, but China could do it. And if they would offer access to Chinese market, access to the Chinese different services like Alibaba, etc. If they truly would like to do that together, I mean, that might be worrying thing for US, for Germany, for other countries. Because if your Y and Z generation will do the company, they will start a company where it's convenient, not because I'm like British, so it has to be a British company. Like, no, I will do it where it's convenient. And if it's outside from somewhere else, your ecosystem actually will have a big hit, because if you have a business in, like, let's say in China case, you also will have a bank account there, etc. So the ecosystem that you will use also is outside from your country. So those are interesting trends, and I'm glad that like our country has been like able and willing to observe them. We can give you deeper studies if you want to understand all those trends in more detail. I'm looking at the clock, so we have last 3 minutes, so we can't talk about interesting stuff like data embassy and country in the cloud stuff. I mean, we have to come again. But the meaning of the state, it changes. So historically it has been location, land, people. In future it will be basically how you feel here. I mean, there are like country of Israel and Jews. I mean, like the nation survived thousands of years without country, because here they felt in the same way. Or you take the negative example, like ISIS. Like, where is their country? Libya, Syria, London. So it becomes like more how you feel here. When Catalonians had the problem, or still have, they came here to study, like, can they rent country in the cloud? So those are interesting trends, and we have need another session to talk about it. But your closing remarks.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes left. Is there any question from the audience, perhaps?
No.
Okay, if not, in this case, maybe still let's spend those 2 minutes to do something useful. Let's speak about security. We're on security conference. So Estonia's e-government actually runs on some principles. First of all, the digital identity is mandatory. Basically, people are getting the digital ID cards, and you can't really escape. Like, you have a personal code from birth, and you can't escape it. Like in many other countries, it's like a very controversial issue. So secondly, you control your data. Like in any government, no government official can just go and look at your data. So it will leave a mark somewhere on a government portal, and you can see who has looked up your data. So the government can't ask you data twice. Like if one government branch knows something about you, another branch can't ask, which means that if you're filling a document and like the government must already know, for example, something about you.
It's actually better that it also means that certain information is collected only once.
Exactly.
And stored only once. So you don't have the same data in duplicate locations. So it's easier to protect that.
Okay, and now Taavi, is that a security concern? Like if it's like only kept once, like you can kill it once and then it's gone? Or is it good? So.
No, I mean, I already noticed there are experts in the audience who are way better like to comment all this, but so quite simple. I mean, if you need to protect system, like if you tear the bunch of data into small parts, even if you lose one small part, it doesn't affect the whole system. That's one thing. If you don't duplicate the same data in multiple locations, it's also easier to protect that because, let's say, population registry invests a lot to cybersecurity, but what if the Ministry of Agriculture, for example, collects the same data and is not so careful? So the investment in a population registry is basically pointless if like all parts like don't do the same kind of security. But that's why Estonian system is so unique. I mean, if something that is there in a population registry, others can request the data, but they can't store it to themselves. So it becomes like, yeah, I like the architecture, but I noticed there was some people who actually built that, so in the audience, so you can ask from them.
Good. So our time is up. Thanks, Taavi.